This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Welcome to the Ghee Spot podcast. I'm your guide, Katie Silcox, bringing you your weekly self-love soundbite. Join us for conversations around sex, spirit, and all things self-care. All things self-care. All things self-care.
This is a journey into sound.
You are a Ghee Spot podcast with Katie Silcox.
Oh my God, I love our intro music so much. I want to thank my sweetheart Pablo in Algeciras, Spain, España, for doing our intro music. That's his voice you hear in there at the end. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow, you guys, I am so just super sparkly right now because I get to talk to you about Tantra. And I just feel my brain and my heart opening up so much. Just looking over my notes and thinking about what I wanted to share just took me on this journey back through all my notebooks. And if you're at home listening, you probably, if you're interested in yoga and Ayurveda and spirituality, I know we get a lot of yoga girls listening to the podcast. You've got your notebook stack and just going back through them and reliving the moments where I've sat at the feet of so many amazing teachers and people who have passed along this knowledge. It just makes me so freaking grateful in my heart that I've been able to be the recipient of these teachings. And now the joy just gets to be multiplied because I get to share it with you. I get to share it over the ether sphere of the internet. And that's really what makes the time that we're living in so freaking beautiful and crazy and creepy, but just mostly beautiful. So today's topic is, what is Tantra? A little bit about my background before I dive in to give you maybe some reason to listen. What does this woman have to say about Tantra? This white lady, Southern Baptist raised, Tennessee, Virginia born and bred lady have to say about Tantra? And the answer is twofold. One is that I've spent the past 20 years of my life in a very fervent, arduous, passionate, and focused love affair with studying it. I have a master's degree in Hindu philosophy. I had a guru, a tantric guru, for 10 years. I've had many teachers and gurus in those 20 years. And like I said, dedicated my whole life to the study of Tantra, really over everything, even over Ayurveda. And so I think it would be safe to say that I know something about it at this point, and lived in India for a while. Oh, the rain is starting to pour here in Charlottesville, Virginia. I don't know if you guys can hear that at home. And then the other thing that I think makes me qualified to share today is the fact that I've been practicing it for these past 20 years, but really deeper than that, all of us are tantrics. In the end of the day, Tantra has nothing to do with India. In this greater sense of the word, Tantra means any method on this planet, any practice, anything that happens to you, whether it be a spiritual practice, a worldly practice, an experience that you have, an herb that you take, a therapy that you go and do, a gemstone that you meditate with, a lover that you have that awakens you to your heart. Tantra, at the furthest reaches of the meaning of the word, means a method for your expansion. And this transcends culture. It transcends time and place. It transcends all religions. It transcends all race and language and creed. It is the underlying nature of reality, and that is that this reality is a benevolent force that is constantly pulsing us into greater and greater awakening. And so Tantra is very much a system and a science that has its roots in ancient India. But if we really look at the deepest meaning of it, it's everywhere. It's in every culture from time immemorial, whereby someone said, "Hey, let's rub these two sticks together and make fire." And from that fire, everything began. And so I'm excited about these talks that we're going to do as a part of our podcast. We're going to be doing Tantra talks. And this is talk number 1. What is Tantra? As I said before, Tantra is a system that has its origins in India. And thousands of years ago, there was a flowering of this type of practice whereby they decided that we would like to use reality on this planet in the mundane world as a way of entering into an experience of the sacred quality of life. The seminal belief or experience in Tantra is that life itself, me sitting here, you sitting there, the rain outside, the room that we're in, even the computers, everything in life is throbbing with a sacred quality, and that sacred quality is its aliveness. Tantra sees all of life as sacred. And when we talk about awakening in Tantra, we aren't, as in many Enlightenment traditions, what makes Tantra different is that we are not attempting to leave this reality. And so, as many of you know, if you've been subscribing to the podcast, or some of you know me from studying with me, some of you have done my Shakti school, Ayurveda school, you know that I was raised Southern Baptist, and still love me some Jesus Christ so hard. But one of the not so great things about that particular moment in time in Christianity, and Christianity for the past several millennia, is that life was very much something that was deemed unvaluable, not worthy, even devilish or harmful. The flesh, the body was seen as evil. The worldly desires were seen as bad. And so I was raised in that. And if you were raised in any of the Judeo-Christian traditions, there's this underlying belief that we must go somewhere else called heaven and pray to something above us called God. And that God was often portrayed as a masculine or male force. Tantra was quite the opposite. It wasn't the opposite. It was actually saying yes and. Yes, we can transcend things, but we can also descend into them. And so Tantra very much understands life itself as being imbued with God force. There are so many mythologies and stories from the tantric realms that speak about God being in the homeless woman, God being in the prostitute, God being in the little child, God being in the trees, God being in the rivers and the streams, God being in the death and destruction, God being everywhere. And that God was also a trickster. And so just when you felt that you'd found the worst thing in the world, that worst thing in the world takes off its mask and reveals to you that, oh, lo and behold, it's God again. And so life itself, number one principle of Tantra, life itself is sacred. Enlightenment isn't somewhere that you go. One of my friends is the author, Jeff Brown. If you don't know Jeff Brown, check him out. Check out his books. We're going to have Jeff on the show at some point. And one of the things I love Jeff does is he plays around with language. And he's so on fire for embodiment. He's so on fire for feeling your feelings and being in reality as it is. And Jeff is like, I'm so tired of this word enlightenment. Just fuck enlightenment. How about enheartenment? Enheartenment. That we're not seeking to leave the world. We're seeking to feel it more, to be in it more, to be in it as it is. So from a tantric, and Jeff is such a tantric, right? From a tantric perspective, we aren't attempting to leave. We're attempting to clear away anything in our own heart, in our own mind, in our own sight that prevents us from seeing life as sacred. So if Tantra did have an enlightenment practice, it would be that the extent to which I'm able to see this life, this moment, right now, you at home, listening to your podcast or driving along with your podcast, the extent to which we're able to see life as sacred is the extent to which we are woke. We are woke. And the extent to which we cannot see that is the extent to which we're still asleep. And I do get that it's hard sometimes to see life as beautiful and divine and God-filled and sacred with all the crazy bullshit going on in the world right now. But Tantra says that there is something that is standing between us and what the Buddha called the grand luminosity that is reality. And so the spiritual practice for us is asking the very hard question, not what is wrong with the world and not what is wrong with everyone else, but what is it in me that's getting in the way of me seeing this grand luminosity, this great diamond opportunity that it is to be alive on this planet right now. Yes, with Donald Trump. Yes, with craziness going on. But I'm here and I get to be in it. So there is a sacred quality in Tantra to the darkness, to the pain, to the struggle and suffering and confusion that sometimes life truly is. There is a sacred quality in our disease, in our darkness, in our misknowing, in our confusion, even in our infighting. There is something here attempting to be learned. And you guys all know this. It's through our struggle and oftentimes through our disease where we get healthy. It's through our struggle and oftentimes our pain that we seek out. Our heart reaches upward and says, God, I am so scared. Come to me. Be with me. Reveal to me what you would have me know. Our challenges are the things that make us stronger. And this is not a religion or a belief system. This is biology. It is through our imbalances that our body learns how to adapt. The second principle of Tantra is that this sacredness of life has a tendency, and we see this in physics, in quantum physics, has a tendency to diversify it and complicate and chaoticize itself. And so we are all here to experience ourselves as something different from one another. And the chaos and the complexity is all a part of this natural expression of the one attempting to become the many. Tantra is a formulaic and systematic, some could even say scientific approach to activating and awakening the sacred part of ourselves. Again, the extent to which I'm aware that I'm sacred and so are you is the extent to which I'm woke. And the extent to which I am not aware that I'm sacred is the extent to which I'm still asleep. The irony is that when you realize you are God, living, embodied in every cell, there's life force, there's love force. When you wake up to that for real, it makes you so much less of a narcissist. It makes you so much more humble. It makes you have such a better sense of humor and humility. The extent to which you wake up to the fact that we're all divinity is the extent to which we do become these beings who have the capacity to make change on this planet. today, when I look around and when I think about all the teachers and great teachers that I've had, there's something that rings true. And that is, if we're going to experience real change and if we're going to really wake up to our power and our life force, we need a certain amount of Shakti. Shakti is a tantric word that means power. We need an alchemical, energetic awakening from the inside out. And that's really why I created Shakti School. Shakti means power. We have a school called The Power School, how to become more powerful. I'm not interested in becoming more peaceful. I'm interested in becoming more powerful, because the peaceful alone, without power, the teachings say it can't do anything. It can't even move. Shiva without Shakti is dead. So how can I awaken my own life force? And we have a school that's a 300-hour program. If you want to know, get inside of that baby. We always have links for Ayurveda school in the show notes. And there are practices of getting more powerful. A lot of them have to do with what you put in your mouth. Some of them have to do with how you move your body. Some of them are related to energy and how to become more energized and more energetic and more purified. Some of them have to do with clearing out emotional blockages, sexual blockages, trauma, disease, imbalance. This is really the basics of all of Ayurveda, is how can I become more powerful, more energized? Life is outside of us is not what we're looking to change as much as we changing our own body and our own chemistry and our own emotional reality. And when I change my body chemistry for the better, and when I shift my emotional reality to be less emotionally constipated, which most of us are, I begin to become a walking power portal. The teachings say that just the mere presence of someone who is woke, just the mere presence of that person becomes a force that has the ability to draw and melt other people's hearts. That's what I'm interested in doing. I'm interested in getting rid of anything in me that's preventing me from being a walking force of activated love. That's Tantra. The body begins to become this seminal idea of the body itself becoming a temple, an altar. The heart is the center channel of this sacred temple. The body begins to become a place where I can settle down and do religio means to yoke. Yoga means to yoke. What am I yoking? I'm yoking my heart to my mind, my body to my soul. My reality is being yoked, present moment, consciousness. When I can begin to do that, my body becomes a place where I can worship. My body is the church. My body has all the chemicals in it that it needs endogenously. That word means inside me. I've got everything I need to fall madly in love right now. Sometimes it's an ecstatic form of love, like a Rumi or a Hafiz or a Saint Teresa of Avila. But sometimes it's just an everyday ecstasy whereby just the natural pulsation of health inside of me makes me feel bliss. Everyday ecstasy is the tantric way. My job as a tantrika, your job, should you choose this path, is to visit my temple every day, to unlock the mysteries inside, and to do worship there on her. And who is her? Her is Shakti. Her is the sacred, beautiful, everyday ecstasy that is your prana, your energy, your life force. This isn't mystical. This isn't esoteric. This is just everyday, real life, you meditating on the reality of your bones. We work with the bones a lot in Shakti school. The bones hold the mysteries to our ancestry. The bones hold the insight into our past traumas and pain. The bones hold every movement that your mother made and your grandmother made as she walked and danced and perhaps crumbled into a heap on this earth. The bones hold the memory of your mother's movements, of your grandmother's movements, of your grandfather's movements. And so as we move the bones and as we meditate on the bones, we get to decide, which of my ancestors' movements do I want to celebrate, mimic, maintain, honor? And which of these movements do I have the great, great honor of repatterning and rewiring because they don't need to be expressed anymore? Our job as tantric practitioners is to unlock the sacred by intimating with the reality of our body. And I do pilgrimage as a tantric. What does that mean? It means I take time out of my life to cook for myself and maybe twice a year cleanse my body. I take time in my day to pray and meditate. I take time out of my day to stop and feel that I might need to cry for about 90 seconds or 90 minutes. The energies inside me, another core tantric principle is that there's nothing outside of me that's not also inside of me. The microcosm of my body is an exact replica and a mirror of the energies of the macrocosm. Another core principle is that I need to use and experience the language of duality in order to know the non-dual. What does that mean? It means that reality is one unending pulse of beauty and bliss and isness and being. And yet, as a human being and as mostly an animal, my experience of reality is very much duality, meaning morning and night, good and bad, hot and cold, masculine and feminine, male and female, happy and sad, old and young. And on and on and on we could go, right? But my experience of duality is real, and I must honor that. If I don't honor that, I will experience imbalance. And yet, fundamentally, we are living in a non-dual reality. You are it. It is you. That sacredness is who you already are, even if you don't feel it and you might feel anxious or depressed. But that sacredness is you. There's nothing you can do to prevent that. You're here. And so Tantra really is just the practice and the teaching of waking you up to that truth of your non-duality. Tantra is often misunderstood as some sort of sacred sex practice or black magic. And sex and black magic were a part of Tantra, but a very, very small part. The deeper understanding of Tantra is that we have the capacity to live in a world where we can hold paradox and duality within the umbrella of the non-dual, meaning there is really no good or bad in Tantra. In Tantra, we work with this paradox whereby I, Katie Silgax, am here sitting in front of you, using my personal willpower, using my body, using my ego structure, using my intellect and my personality, using my personal power, whilst hopefully working to weave that personal power into trustful, faithful, divine surrender to something bigger than me. And, I don't mind the word God. You don't have to use that word, but being able to merge our personal power into divine will is one of the biggest and most important principles of tantric practice. Another important thing to write down and remember is that your sensual, sensory, senses power and your spiritual power both get to be here. That our spiritual liberation and our spiritual freedom and our spiritual insight and our relationship to God and us being a loving spiritual person can coexist beside us being a sexy person and a sensual person and a person who can enjoy this world. So often religions say this world is temporary, and so don't get attached. Many ancient teachings speak about this worldly life just being a bridge between you and heaven. And what a tantric would say is that's a really sad way of living. Yes, this life is a bridge. Yes, we are on that bridge and it is temporary. But why not make the bridge as beautiful and enjoyable as possible? Why would you want to run over the bridge without experiencing what's there? And what if what's there actually is heaven itself? We just haven't taken enough time to live that. One of the things we'll be discussing in this podcast is Kundalini, and we'll go into it more. But for now, just Kundalini is a huge, huge precept of Tantra. And the idea is that you are so much more and bigger than you know. There is so much more to you than what you may think. Kundalini is the practice and process of waking up to just how big you are and small you are. We do this through a number of practices and internal meditations and movement forms that we practice here at Shakti School that help us. And we'll do some of those practices in the podcast as we go along. So please subscribe and stay tuned with us for more. Once you relax into the idea, according to Tantra, that you will never cease to be, and that you are what the teachings call a kama yoni, a womb, a producer of kama, of pleasure and desire. Once you relax into the fact that you are always going to be desiring and longing, and that you might as well not try to avoid your desires, that new desires will constantly be born within you, that there is a source that will never stop answering your desires, and that your evolution and expansion is therefore eternal, then you can start to relax. Once we relax, so much more can be made available to us. Energy, power, life force, it just can't flow through tension. It can't flow through trauma. It can't flow through a fight or flight nervous system. And so one of the biggest practices that we do in Shakti School is helping people get out of fight or flight and collapsed nervous system states. Because when we are in those states, our brain literally cannot take in new information. When I'm in fight or flight or collapsed nervous states, all my brain can do is scan back through my past memory and prepare myself to run or to collapse or fight. And so in order to actually evolve and learn and become, I've got to slow it down and relax. And then I can begin to sense that there's something that my desire has not yet taught me. This is called Shraddha, a faith in that which is to come. The last central idea of Tantra that I want to touch on is this idea of desire and surrender, trustful Shraddha, faith-based surrender, being able to coexist. And if you're interested in creating things or manifesting things, the optimal creation point, the optimal magnetizing manifestation point is being able to rest in complete gratitude for what is, while simultaneously being super excited and eager about what's to come, and yet being totally surrendered to none of it happening. That may sound really hard, and it is. But this is where great things come from. So Tantra, one of the definitions we spoke on earlier is this capacity to, this methodology for expansion. Another definition of Tantra is a weaving or a loom, this idea of weaving, my ability to weave my spirituality, my awakening into the fabric of my daily life. And so as we go forward together here on this podcast, the Ghee Spot, the entirety of this podcast is dedicated to us more and more being able to use everything in our life as a method and a tool for activating love inside of our own body. I hope this little mini talk on Tantra, Tantra Talks, Talk 1, What is Tantra, has touched you, which, by the way, another definition of the word Tantra is to be touched in the heart. I hope that you, in some way, have been touched in the heart by this talk, and that you'll subscribe to our podcast, share it with your friends, leave us a review if you love it. We're actually offering up a free course we're going to give to a winner. It could be you, and the way that you get to enter to win is just leave us a review, and that helps us show up in iTunes searches and helps get the word out on all things sex, spirit, and self-care. If you want to know more about my work, you can head to katiesilcox.com. If you want to know more about Shakti School and sign up for Shakti School and become an Ayurvedic health coach and a healer in this world, you can head to theshaktischool.com. It's all on katiesilcox.com as well. We have another program starting this coming mid-January 2019, and there's still spots left. We hope that you will be one of them. I want to share all these great teachings with you. And so if that's of interest to you, head on over there, theshaktischool.com. We've got it all there. We've also got plenty of links in the show notes if you want the direct link. All right, you guys, thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next week on the Ghee Spot.
Put